Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is From the Depths Galley, where we're in the next episode or part of the sub-building process. And in this one, did I be calling it Sea Dodge Block Boom? Yeah, but that'll do. So basically, thanks for any comments on the previous videos, taking them in for my final build. I'll be looking at various things. This video is going to be long because the last video I thought was going to be a short video, and after half an hour it was still going on. And so yeah, this one's got a few things to look at, and because I tend to get distracted, squirrel, and ramble off on a totally different area, yeah, it'll take a little while, but I don't care if you don't care. So let's start with this. So we've got in the sub, we've got our engines, we've got our propellers, propulsion and dive control. Now we're going to be looking at weapon controls and weapons. Now this is not first of all the be all and end all of all different types of weapons, and you can come up with something and change it, modify it, think something slightly different. What I'm going through is what I like to do, also where I get it right, where there is where weapons get affected by subs, water, etc. So we're looking at that particular side. So first of all, we're going to look at the sea, because the first thing you've got to be able to do is see your opponent, see missiles coming in, see, just see. Now this will depend on one biggest change is your options. So I'm going to go to my options to show you. So under options, if we go to config, now you'll see here for the moment I've set most automatic detection accuracy. The default setting is 0.1, and that is the default, which means that even if they've got no detection devices, you've got a chance, you still know that it's out there, but you have a very low accuracy percentage of seeing anything. I know some people set this to 0, which means if you have no detectors, you do not know that the enemy is there at all with any sort of accuracy whatsoever. I don't personally like that one. I like putting it at 0.01, which is 1% accuracy, so that they know that it's there, but yes, it's fairly random. I like that one so that it stops some subs especially being totally stealthy, and basically when some places like the Onyx Watch have no chance at all whatsoever of hitting you. It's too big a difference. Different people have different settings they like to set this to, from 0 to whatever. And I know in some tournaments they set this at 1, so everyone's got perfect accuracy, but we're not doing that here. So I'm going to set this at 0.01 just for the moment, because that's my normal factor. If I'm mucking around with stealth subs, I do put it down to 0 to test that type of system. So okay, with it at 0.1, you haven't got to worry, because your ship would know that there is at least an enemy out there in your sub. You haven't got to worry about knowing exactly where it is, but you want to be able to have accuracy for your weapons, so that depends on AI components. So the obvious there's a number of obvious ones to be able to see, and you've got two types of vehicles you're trying to see. You want to see ships, other subs, and flying vehicles. So for them, under AI, the obvious ones, I'm just going to start with those, is sonars. So you've got the passive sonar, which is quite good. I do like passive sonar. It can't be seen itself. It is got a very good range actually. Lots of things are seen by passive sonar. It seems that it seems to have a very good detection for missiles and other ships. Sonar 360, this is a very common one, and the directed sonar. Now these all have slightly different accuracy, range errors, etc. Sonar itself isn't very accurate. It tells you something's out there, but it's not necessarily accurate. It also won't detect surface targets. All the other detection systems in here, I believe, except for wireless. Now, okay, wireless you can use underwater as well. It will work, and it detects water. Sorry, the wireless used in other systems. Now, as far as I'm aware, all the radar, all the infrared, all the visual coincidence rangefinders, and I believe also needs to be above water. They all will only work above water. So you could put them, as I have done in some cases, put them on the end of a piston to act as like a telescope or a periscope, and so when you're near the surface you can have them detecting aircraft, etc. So primary ones then, as I said, passive sonar and your active sonar. You can also use sonar buoys. So here we've got a very simple system missile, and it only works on medium or larger of a sonar buoy. Now you can also here, I'll say there is a radar buoy. We'll look at that in a second. So what we do, sonar buoy with a ballast tank. Now it has to be below the water. Oops, sorry. So I've set the float depth to be 20. That way it will sink below the once we fire it. If I just test fire it, there we go, it will sink down, and now that will be providing, if I go into, let's see, if I go into here, and we should see sonar buoy down here somewhere. Missile sonar buoy, not targets detected, because there's no targets out there to shoot at this moment, so but it's on the list. That will disappear, but it is giving in signals back to the ship for targeting. You could launch multiple of these and they will average together all of their detection systems and detect the enemy ships, give you targeting information. For aircraft, very similar. All you got to do is change this to a radar buoy. Where are we? Radar buoy, and set the ballast tank to be just plus with a 0 there. Let me just make sure I have actually got a radar buoy available. Let me just see if that will fire. No, I haven't got one. So what I have to do is get a missile radar buoy holder, and I'll just put it over here for the moment. There we go. Because it'll only fire if there is one of these buoys available. That's the same for the sonar. So now if I fire that, come on, I've got to wait for the, there we go. So that's fired off, and you'll see it is bobbing in the water. Now it's not hyper accurate. Again, we should see it down here. You'll see the buoy, it goes underwater and above water. So whilst it's bobbing around in the water, it will sort of detect items, but it's not, it's not great, basically. Another way you can use this, both of these, is putting them, and the way I do like to use them, let me just reset this back to being a sonar buoy. Just for the moment, is to put them on, is to put the buoys on the end of a missile or torpedo. In this case, a torpedo for the radar. Now, what this does, what I have done here is put a one turn, so it will aim at whatever target. Because these sonar buoys don't have a great range, by heading towards the target, even with a one turn, we haven't got to hit the target, just get close. We're going to be sending back more accurate targeting information. So basically we can, at the moment I just have it set to auto fire, but that could be set to fire at a target using an AI block to say fire at target XYZ, let's see, within a certain range. it will just use the one turn, head towards the target, start sending back nice accurate targeting information. Same with the radar. If you had a missile with instead of having a torpedo, have a thruster on it and just send it straight up into the air, you'd also won't stop having that problem of it bouncing in the water. Or you could have it just go as a one turn, upwards and towards the enemy aircraft, ships, etc., and send back the information. So anyway, that is seeing. That is the first stage. So the other good bit about these two blocks, the sonars, is if we just go back into here, I just want to check whether that one does the same. Right, okay, so just checking something. They haven't got it on the tooltip. The passive and the two active sonars all have the option that says can detect torpedoes and underwater mines with a range factor of. So 50%, 25%, and sonar has 50%. So passive and the long range sonar are your best ones. Main thing is they can detect sonar incoming torpedoes or mines or anything in the water, so that you can then use that in an ACB. These do not specifically say anything about being able to detect a missile or sonar buoys or anything. So okay, we'll assume that they can't. So you need at least a passive to detect incoming torpedoes. So that's our C. So the next bit then is what I call dodge. So dodge is dodging incoming torpedoes or missiles. We're going to specifically say about torpedoes. We're going to assume that if a missile's coming from you, you were on the surface, you're now diving. Hopefully you dive deep enough that the missile's no longer effective. So the next thing to do is if a torpedo coming in has active scanning, we'll ignore for the moment remote guidance, because that's obviously counters those, but for anything with a sonar, what we can use is a various level of decoys, and I classify them as two types. You've got noisemakers and decoys, as you would in real submarines. Now down here what we have got is a sonar decoy, and that is under defense sonar decoy. So if I just put the power of this up to 1000, first of all, actually I'm going to we'll set it up to 1000. So that's now spending 1000 power, making lots and lots of noise in the water. Just to make sure that these ones are turned off for the moment. So what I have launched is a buttress. Now I have got showing the detection lines on here, because that way you'll see what it is targeting at, and you'll notice that they have gone for this decoy like a, well, I'm going to say a bitch. Yes, they've gone for it. They are really heading towards this 1000. If we take this, just see if we take this down to 500, they're still going for it at the moment. We'll see if the next torpedoes that are launched still go for it. Yeah, we still got these. So what I've done is I've brought in a buttress. Now the buttress fires large radar guided torpedoes. So you can see so far all of them have gone for this. Now these buttress torpedoes do have a bit of a problem. They are really going for it though, and they're missing on occasion. Now what you could do is have this as on the back of a ship, or spawn in some small unit which just has this on it maybe, and try and make the missiles go for it. Oh, they're actually going for that decoy as well. So yeah, you could, so the amount of power you need is going to be really based upon the size of your So at the moment it's got 1250 meters. It's based on the size of your vehicle. The bigger your vehicle, the more strength you will need to direct the missiles so they don't go for your main vehicle. Actually at the moment they seem to be doing a good job of continuously working. I don't need as much as I'd expect, but you could muck around with it. It also depends how much power you've got. Let's just set it at 100. Downside of this, yes, eventually the missiles will hit, especially if they're slightly more dodgy. You can see actually this level, you can see some of them have not been taken by that at what was that, 100. So 100, and it's not taking all of them. So if you had this on the back of your ship, eventually it's going to get hit. Also, if your ship is running away and these chase up the rear of you, once they've hit there, the second one's going to hit your main ship. So it works, but it's where I would use this is a fleet support. So a frigate who is specifically designed to be an anti-torpedo system would run this and run lots of other systems to take the torpedoes away from the main fleet. So that's that one. Anyway, I'm going to turn this off for the moment. The other side, so that's the first dodge. It's sort of dodge. The second dodges are medium-sized missiles. You can do small. I'll start with small missiles first. Small missiles with some sonar target simulators. So a sonar target simulator, basically, if we just go down here, emits sound that attracts sonar guided torpedoes, sort of obviously, and we can just create a simple control block which says if torpedoes are within, say, 600 meters, fire the system that's within 2 blocks. As you can see, I've got them firing out. Now the other bit I've got on here is a ballast tank, because you want them to either this is to be the case with all of the systems. You want them to be at a level that you're not. So you either want them going down. If you're on the surface, you want the sonar target simulators to make sure they go downwards, to draw the torpedo away from your level. Or if you're in a sub, you might actually make these positive buoyants or go up to just below the surface. But basically you want the torpedo to aim away from you. Now you can actually see these small ones aren't really having that much effect, to be honest. So you can do the larger ones. As you can see, these have a sonar effect of 4,800. So if I turn this one on, there we go. So now that it's live, any fired torpedoes, there we go. I think we're finding, yep, they are they have gone for this nice little decoy. So we're dodging it, and that could be there whilst we burn off in another direction. Again, you'll want a little ballast control. At this particular point I've kept it about I think 20 meters, but you could have it so instead that it's slowly going down. Let's put it like that, and we should see, so at the moment we got 2 there. This one should just go out and then it went up. Is it going to go down? Maybe I didn't set that correctly. Let me just check that one more time. Of course, I put it the wrong way. Minus 0.2. That's what I want. Go on, fire one more time. There we go. And you can see it's going to slowly go down to the seabed, which will drag the torpedoes. Now, they're not working 100% because even with this pretty high level, when you fire one, you've got to be able to get the torpedoes to dodge away from you, and once they're locked on you, it's quite difficult to get them to unlock unless you can make the decoy go in their path. And I'll see if I can simulate that. I haven't got controls of the fortress to be able to change my direction, but anyway, when you've got a sub that's firing these out, they can work. I'll show one other way of doing this using a different vehicle. So here we are in the little test sub, and it's got some small decoys. Now, because this is quite a smallish ship with a reasonable sized signature as far as sonar is concerned, if we go look at the sonar, it's not, let's just make sure we got that on right. Yep. Now it's sending out some little sonar buoys, which is good, and so they are taking away the large torpedoes because this is quite small, so they are working. It's firing a few out when they get fairly close. This also has a couple of other functions as well, which I've put in, which is all part of dodge. Let me just turn that one off because it's not showing what I was hoping. So what I've also got in here is a couple of ACBs. So this ACB, if there are missiles or torpedoes within 400 meters, set the altitude to 150. In other words, make us dive down. And this one waits, if there's something within 200 meters, then activate the H key to basically do a hard left turn. And I don't know, our decoys though are actually working quite well against this at the moment. I'm not sure if I'm... Oh, we got one come in. Didn't work 100%, as you can see. I forgot to make this invulnerable. So it's not a guarantee, but it survived a while out of there, and it's still decoying some of the heavy missiles. But it wasn't a guarantee, but it worked. It's working reasonably. Considering this is a small sub, I'm happy. It's not really a stealth sub, but I think it showed the fact that you can use these small sonar buoys if your submarine is also small. If hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's go back to the main area. So the dodge didn't quite work as I would like, doing the diving and turning, but it sort of worked in that because I was now so deep, my decoys were working because they were so much higher above me. Let me just do that. There we go. So they sort of did work in that regard. If your ship was more agile and the sub was faster, I think the avoidance using an ACB would work. Right, next one, with these ones we talked about, I'm just going to turn these off so they're not going to affect us. The other one is what I call more of a decoy rather than noisemaker, and this basically is, if I just test fire it just to make sure I've done fire, there we go. So this is a slightly bigger unit, but it's actually got a torpedo, fins, ballast tank, and then 4 sonar target systems. Now the idea of this is that it's actually going to move away from our ship. You can see it's fired another one, and any torpedo that locks onto it will get drawn away. Now again, we have a size issue in that we're so big. A lot of these ones are not locking into it. It has got quite a lot of systems. Is it going to take any of the torpedoes away? Unfortunately not. I do find this works at long range normally, on a moving ship, as long as I fire it in the opposite direction to what we're moving. And then as the missile comes round to try and follow behind, it does tend to decoy quite a few of them. This one unfortunately is not working as well as I would like. Let me just try something. So that particular decoy not working quite as well as I would expect for us on here, but it was, yeah, we are a very large ship and I've added to it since I did the testing on this earlier, but on normal size subs this does work, and obviously you could increase the size of it so it works for your particular size sub. Right, so that's the whole dodging. We'll turn it off for the moment, I think, because we don't need that on at this moment. The next thing is block. So yeah, we turn these off as well, just we don't need them on. Cluttering everything up. Right, next one is blocking the missiles. So the obvious one is the torpedo interceptor. This is what I call the block. So starting with small ones, very basic torpedo that I tend to use. Interceptor, lots of fins, enough fuel just to make it last about 20 seconds. Doesn't need, it's actually, even at full speed, is a bit more. That's fine. And then just a control block. I tend to use a staggered fire. Then a control block that says if it's within, in this case, 500 meters. I like to use this for generally medium and small missiles, but it does work against large as well. But to kill a large one, I've got this going out. We've got 7 sets of missiles. Will it take that one out? Just about. So it takes 7 small ones to, I say small, so that's 14 blocks worth of missiles to take out a large. Mediums, it's about 2 to 3. It will take out a medium torpedo or medium missile. Obviously, just it's all based upon the health of the unit. The interceptor destroys a certain amount of health. Good bit about these, as you can see, they turn on target very quickly and they can target missiles very quickly. They can take out more than one enemy torpedo if they're close together, which these buttress ones aren't that close, but if they're close together, the explosion from one torpedo can actually knock out the other torpedo, but it's more common to take out one at a time. Personally, I use these fairly close, 500-600 meters, so that it picks up small or medium-sized torpedoes as it's doing. Any ones that are left, go for another one. Okay, medium. So almost identical. Minimum size, missile interceptor, torpedo propeller, ballast tank set at 0, fins and fuel. Missile interceptor on all of these is only target missiles, so it should only target torpedoes. If I turn this one on, the control block on this, I like this to make sure that it doesn't go for small missiles, so I tend to say only target or only fire if you detect torpedoes out at quite a long range. Now 700 to 1500 will generally be large torpedoes, because if we look at these ones for instance get a passive detection at 855, active 234, so that means that this size torpedo will only get detected at 800, so 700 is a good one. If I just turn off this one, the small, for the moment, we should be able to see, so it's just fired 4 torpedoes, 4 missile interceptors, bang. So it's 3 or 4 to basically take out this large missile, large torpedo. Should get these ones in just to confirm that. So this is basically block the block. So you need 4 mediums for every large, which is, you know, about right. It is more efficient, and I would most probably set this up as layers, in that have these ones, as I say, longer range, and then any getting past those missiles have to contend with the small missiles. So you've got like a two-stage. You could have a third stage, some slightly different medium ones, or even large interceptors that work at even longer range to be able to detect huge missiles, huge torpedoes. You would still need a lot of these to take on a huge torpedo, as you could imagine. I think if you've got huge torpedoes coming towards you, I think you've got a problem. But it isn't impossible, but you might be better off trying to hope your decoys work against a huge rather than anything else. Right, the other good bit about the block is they work against missiles that have a sonar. They also work against remotely guided torpedoes. Remotely guided torpedoes will not be blocked by the decoys or noisemakers. They do not use, there is no targeting to disrupt, because they're using the firing ship's targeting, which ignores your noisemakers. My view, maybe should an enemy's sonar system actually be distracted by your noisemakers and decoys? Anyway, main thing is it doesn't work against remote guided. It only works against sonar, but these work against both, so blocking is more effective than dodging, but this is going to cost you a lot more resources than the decoys. So decoys are always still the best option. They can automatically decoy multiple incoming missiles before they get in range of your interceptors. So these could be, for instance, the first stage defense. So next stage, we can see the enemy, and I've just spawned a marauder out there for testing, and we can dodge or block their incoming torpedoes if that is necessary. But next is the most important bit on a sub, and I'll explain why in a second, is the boom. We have to make the enemy go boom before we do. Why is this important, and more important to make subs basically glass cannons, for want of a better the terminology that is used, is no matter how much armor you put into a submarine, once you get to that 80% damage, if you're under the water, you will be classed as sinking and be despawned. So that means it's not worth putting too much effort into armor on a submarine, because at some point you're going to meet that 80%. You can put some settings in there to say as soon as you get close to 80% at surface, but then you're into a whole new system of should you have shields and all those surface bits, etc. My personal view is kill the enemy before they can kill you, and just dodge and block what you can of incoming fire, but primarily destroy them first. Okay, weapons then. Now, I'm not covered simple weapons here. I think that simple weapons, in my view, would have the same deficiencies of APS, but I haven't really looked at them, and they're not really big enough boom to look at in what we're looking at here. So, weapons. Now, the weapons as such come under two categories we'll look at. One is direct fire, and the other is indirect fire. Why do I split these up? Well, that's all about targeting. If you're a sub, you've got your sonar and active sonar, maybe some buoys, etc., targeting the enemy. You can't rely on active radars, visual cameras. Yes, I've got them all here, but in a sub you won't have all of those facilities to use to target the enemy, so your targeting of the enemy will be less accurate. So if you got a weapon that relies on accuracy, potentially that's a downside to the weapon initially, but it can be overcome, and it's variable, so yeah, there's pluses and minuses, but that's how I'm splitting them up. I'm not saying it's a negative being direct fire, it's just something you have to take into account. You can't be a guaranteed one shot. You more likely got to do damage over time with a direct fire weapon. Okay, the weapons in general, in order, in my view, of their effectiveness, least going upwards. So lasers. Now lasers are not that effective because they get very heavily affected by water. So if we just look at the laser combiner here, this is nothing special laser, just a laser I built, but you can see that if we go down here, so it's got a 110 API, all the rest of it. Where are we? There we go. If we actually look at the optics, you can see down the bottom here we've got water damage at. So that means, yes, this will go out to 4,000 meters, 20% damage. So at 500 meters, this is doing 81% damage normally. Under the water at 500 meters, it's only doing 1.5% of damage. So basically, next to nothing. Just, you know, so that is why lasers are the lowest level of use of weapon, and there's no way, I don't know of a way of changing that, and I think it's fine that it doesn't have a way of changing that. There's no sort of way of changing that, so that's fine. So lasers, yeah, don't use them underwater. Also, it means you're not immune, but you're pretty damn immune to lasers. You know, you get 100 meters below the water, that's all of their damage is halved straight away. That's without, you know, and every 100 meters more, you can see it's reducing. So if you get down to a depth of 150, 200 meters, basically lasers aren't really going to touch you, so you haven't got to worry about shields or smoke. I haven't even bothered to look at smoke and shields. Just use the fact that the water is stopping them seeing you. Crams are the next one on the not good underwater. The main reason is you've got no way, again, of changing the fact that underwater the shell gets slowed down significantly. If I go down here, I'm going to come off there. I've got a system underwater here. So if I'm just going to turn this on and get them firing at the Marauder, which is 1,500 meters away, should be easy enough to hit. Let me see, I might do it manually. So if we target the ship manually, there we go, wait for it to get ready, come on, and now we're going to follow the shell, and it stops, and it stopped 300 meters away. So yeah, anything less than 300 meters and it's not gonna hit. Okay, not good at long range, but I will say this: if you had a cram cannon that was maybe upward facing or something like that, the explosives and everything else in the cannon will work up to that 300 meters. So if you were to get close underwater to a ship, you could still fire your cram cannon. Maybe some upward firing cram cannons, maybe something like that. Or, you know, is it effective? Not really. Potentially usable. There is also, I will do it, maybe try it at some point, is you could make a submarine surface, fire the cram cannon, because the cram cannon takes, in this case, 64 seconds, so for the next 60 seconds go underwater, then come up for a little while, fire, then go back underwater, and you rinse and repeat. So you could do that using simple control blocks to make a cram cannon work, but is it effective? Yeah, I would still go for one of the other systems. APS guns. These are the next, I would say, most effective direct guns, mainly because they can be tuned specifically for underwater use. So let's look at a standard 150mm shell without any changes. We can see we've got good range, 7,000, armor piercing, good explosive damage, all the rest of it. Yeah, not brilliant shell, but it's there. But when we fire it underwater, I think I have it set up. Yeah, we've got it set up. So if I fire at our target, there we go. We're gonna fire, and oh, that did fire. I'm quite surprised at that. Let me just make sure I've got the right ammo loaded there, because I'm surprised that actually managed to hit. Right, with that standard ammo loaded and set to automatically fire, you can see the shots are only getting part of the way to the target. They're actually only going 800 meters in this particular case. So yeah, they're firing a little short because the water is slowing them down. Turn that off for the moment. So what can we do about that, and what is the effect? So the change you can make is putting a supercavitation base at the back of the shell. Now this means it retains 90% of its speed rather than slowing down, but it reduces by 25%, so 75% of the previous or 75, it makes it 75% for frag HE warheads, which is not a major, but it is enough. I mean, here we're taking an example between these two shells. This one here has 651 damage, and exactly the same with the supercavitation, goes down to 488. The same with the fragments, the fragment damage 574, and on this one it was 680. So you can see it's going down. The same effect for HESH. HESH with a supercavitation base, we've got spalling damage 760, and if I take off the cavitation base, it goes up to 1013. So yes, it reduces it, but that could still be okay enough to take out the enemy. So if I change this to do the so it's the same shell but with a supercavitation so I've changed the gun to have the same standard shell, but this time with the supercavitation base. If I just turn this on so it will start firing, we should now see shots coming through, and yep, they are hitting, or you know, they're making it to be able to hit the target. And this is how you can also aim at, say, flying targets, because once it's gone out of the water, it then retains that speed to continue on towards the target. So okay, that is how you can use the direct fire. Now, one thing to be aware of, this is a direct fire weapon, so it will basically needs accuracy, so it's going to need lots of the sonar buoys, passive sonar, active sonar, to work. Shells I like, I've been working on like a super cavitation one. You can still use the speed, give it plenty of thump damage, plenty of a hollow point. This is one I've been working on. Works quite well, quite a nice amount of initial damage, and also, even though it's reduced by 75%, a nice bit of shaped charge just to penetrate through, and this will penetrate through about 3 blocks of metal to give fragments inside. If I just find that the Marauder, we'll see how that does. So this isn't the ultimate shell. I'm sure people will have other shells they like. It's just something I've been playing with that does a nice bit of thump damage, and also does penetrate with fragments inside on a low to medium size caliber gun. So it's got quite a good rate of fire. By having a reasonable rate of fire, you haven't got to worry so much about being hyper accurate, because you're just going to blast the area with these shells and basically make your way through. So yeah, that's a reasonable direct fire. Final one, let me just turn that off. Final direct fire weapon, which I think is very good, is particle cannons. Particle cannons are not affected by water, so yeah, anything you set up on them, everything about them, there's no changes. They don't have any changes as far as I can see, because they're an energy shot. There's no effectively slowing down of a shot. Their firepower is the same no matter what. This is just one of the standard template particle cannons. I haven't changed it really very much. But this would work underwater the same as it does above water. You also, with the particle, have the melee loop, which I know some people have used very effectively, and is used actually by the... I can't remember which ship it was. Is it possibly the White Flayers? Basically, it makes the particle arc, it then runs underneath your ship and cuts the bottom of your ship off. So that can work very well as far as a direct fire weapon, and is worth investigating for people that want to make, as I say, direct fire weapons. I know it's used on one of the Steel Strider's subs, actually has a direct fire weapon particle cannon on the rear on a little turret. So yeah, I would say definite plus point. Minus side of the particle cannon is it's quite big. You've got to make quite a big lot of pipes, a lot of battery, etc., to make the particle cannon powerful. But once it's powerful, it's very powerful, but it does take up a lot of space. I mean, relatively, I mean, this 150 millimeter is actually taking up quite a lot of space as well, so it's relative in terms in that regard. My firepower, shell power 3.46, 7.23, and on this one I've got a firepower 13.8, so I don't think that's got that many more blocks used, so potentially it's more powerful, and as I say, it's not affected by water. So anyway, that's the last of the direct fires. So next we have I'm going to call them indirect, because that's torpedoes and missiles, and we have two types. We're going to look at torpedoes first. And the minimum you need for a torpedo, and this applies to small as well, I'm going to use medium missiles. I personally like using medium sized missiles over the other sizes. I do find there is use cases for small missiles and some use cases for large missiles. In my testing, I have found in general, because the chance of being decoyed, if you get a large missile decoyed, which it's got the same chance as a medium, that is a lot of firepower that is lost on target. Whereas if you've got 4 medium missiles of the similar sort of total firepower, if you get one of those you decoyed, you've still got 3 do damage. So you've got 3/4 of the damage, but it's more reliable. Just something I prefer. I like using the medium-sized missiles. So okay, now a bit. I do use large ones under certain conditions for very large ships, but anyway, I am prevaricating and going down that little path that I tend to on my videos. Anyway, let's go back to talking about torpedoes. Minimum you need: torpedo propeller, fins. This I would suggest a 1-turn, a ballast tank, torpedo sonar, and some explosive damage. Otherwise, why the heck would you be firing at them if you haven't got a way of damaging them? So this is the smallest sort of feasible torpedo that you can have. I always have a ballast tank. I like having a ballast tank either set to 0 or a minus figure. I'll go through that in a second why. 1-turn as well, so that after firing from your torpedo tube, you haven't got to worry about your torpedo being aimed at the target. You know, for the first couple of seconds the 1-turn will take over until the guidance kicks in. That's my preference. Nice and easy to fire, nice and simple, it works. If we just go over there, fire, it will fire out. 1-turn will take over, and that's quite a fast torpedo, as you see with that small size. Works reasonably well. Oops, can't change to it, but does a reasonable amount of damage once it hits. 5.4k of damage, so it works, no problems with that. Good against fast targets as well. This will travel out at 100 meters a second, so good as a I sometimes mix some of these small torpedoes with my bigger ones for short range if I've got something that's a fast boat or something else like that. They work reasonable. A more common missile, torpedo sonar. This sort of level of explosion, 5, I find is a good level, about 6 warheads. I mix it with EMP as my favourite. Sometimes I do use frag as well, occasionally, but I find explosive and EMP is a good mix on a torpedo sonar with a ballast tank. Now I set my ballast tanks often at a minus figure. I'll show you why I do that in a second, but otherwise they're similar. Fins, I only keep it down to 1 fin. Sometimes I put 2, but often I stick to 1 fin. The targets I find for these torpedoes of this size, they're unlikely to dodge a torpedo in general. The smaller ones, these have got such a fast turn rate, they don't need multiple fins, and I don't find having bigger torpedoes than this worth doing. So if we just follow this one in, if I can get this one in, let me just fire it. So we're firing at our target, there we go. So it's going underwater slightly, and what you'll find is, you see it's got a slight upward tilt, but it's staying down because of the buoyancy. Now what I find that does is, you can still see it's still going down deeper a little bit, and when it gets closer to the target it starts to come up, and I find that that hits underneath the target a little bit more, and it hits basically underneath, and that's actually AI dead the Marauder in 1 hit. So EMP, they just love it. Other bits, just odd torpedoes. Let me just open up, bring up a new target. So a more advanced torpedoes, and we'll go through two that I like to do. One is putting in prediction guidance and signal processors. This is one of my standard-ish, I call it Mark 8 torpedo. I like this one. It's an 8-block torpedo. It's got good explosive power. Actually, I'll give it the EMP similar to that other one. Signal processor. Sometimes I'll use fragments here instead of EMP, but I do like EMP explosive. Signal processor so it doesn't get directed away. Prediction guidance, so if you have got something fast, the one fin will still home in on the target without a problem. This also has a good range. I put a regulator in on this. It has a good 80 seconds. It's going to go for those 80 seconds, and at 60 meters a second it's not slow. And 7.6s, let's see, that's going to be going for it's over nearly 5,000 meters, so this is a long distance torpedo. If I just fire at one of these, come on. Now it's unfair in one regard, in that these don't have any detection, so you won't see the signal processor working as such on these. But yeah, it will home in at long range. You haven't got to worry about what targeting your own ship has got, because it's going to use its own onboard sonar. And against anything with a lot of metal, that EMP is going to go through. I spawned in a few marauders, and there we've got that EMP and the AI dead. So if you've got the AI low down in your ship with these particular missiles, yeah, it tends to kill it pretty damn quickly. That doesn't work for all ships, but it does work for these marauders. Final one is, I say final, for torpedoes, general torpedoes, is remote guidance. So instead of using the sonar at the front, I've put a thumper head to give us some good speed. Otherwise, the warhead's similar, but I've given it remote guidance. Now this has got two fins, because if this misses for any reason, because of the remote guidance, it can turn around. So I do tend to use two fins on this particular model, and you haven't got a predictive guidance. The other one on here, I've got Sonar Buoy. Why have I got a Sonar Buoy? Well, this is going to help the remote guidance, because as it's coming in to the target, the Sonar Buoy will be sending back targeting information to increase its own guidance. So it's actually getting more accurate as it's getting closer to the target. Yeah, I like this. It does work very well on stealthy subs, where you basically don't have very much active guidance going out there, when you have to rely on your own passive systems. So if I just fire that one off there, it will target itself onto the target, hopefully. Now it's maybe using my targeting here, so I've actually got a wire guide this in. Where did they go? Oh, they're over here. They're over here. I lost them. There you are. It's like having a wire guided torpedo. I have to guide him myself. Go on, hit. No, I missed. Oh, hit the second one. It would have been better if I'd left it to be guiding itself, to be frankly honest there, but yeah. It is actually interesting that you can wire guide your own torpedoes. I think that's quite good fun. But anyway, that is another final way. If the AI is controlling it, I'll just put the AI to do the control. The AI is a lot better than me. As I say, that Sonar Buoy will increase the accuracy as it got closer. You won't see that here because I've got so many detection systems on this particular platform, but in a sub this works nicely to ensure that this targeting point, you can see it's moving around the ship a lot, that would get tighter and tighter as it got towards the target. And we're going to get a nice AI dead on that one again. Oh, I don't think it AI dead at that. EMP though did spread. It's going almost did a lap of the ship. It's sending another one out, but we'll stop that for a second. One thing you need in place for using the remote guidance, you need a sonar buoys, and you need general processing power for the sonar buoy, and also processing power for the remote guidance. Also, you need enough sonar buoys for the number of missiles you have. If you do not have enough sonar buoys, even if the missile has loaded, it will not fire because it does not have enough sonar buoys. So that's good if you only want one in the water at the same time, but if you want multiple in the water, you need to make sure you have enough sonar buoys and enough processing power for remote guidance. But yeah, it does work. Final one. What about really big missiles? Yeah, really big missile torpedoes are fun. So this is huge missile, fairly basic. Just got to, I would put a signal processor on there, because if you miss with this and it goes for a decoy, you're going to be so unsatisfied. I'd even say remote guidance would be a good option on this. But if we just fire this off at one of those, there we go. Oops, there we go. We're on board. Dum da dum. Huge torpedoes. I don't use them that often, but the amount of damage they do is good fun. Let's just let this one come in on this border. Again, I like setting a minus figure on the ballast tank. These are not very fast, 37 meters a second, so you don't want to be firing these against fast targets. But when these come in up on a target, let's just see what sort of damage it does. These are also got a lot of health, 258,000. You'd need a lot of interceptors to be able to take that out. Yeah, 208,000 explosive damage on that shell, and yeah, I'm not surprised you're AI dead. You know, yeah, good fun, but very resource hungry. I still prefer medium missiles. I'd still prefer multiple medium accurate missiles to a huge one, but I can't get away from the fact that they're so fun to watch hit. You know, you see one of these hit with that big boom and it's fun. Right, okay, so we've looked at targeting ships and enemy subs, and because these have all got ballast tanks, if the enemy is a sub, they will go for it just as easily. What if a ship is on the surface and or aircraft? Well, we've looked at, these are torpedoes which are launched horizontally, which is normal for a torpedo and fits within that surface or submarine type of ship. The other type is, if you're underwater, is vertical launched torpedoes or missiles. So here I've got some sub-launched cruise missile type missiles. Again, these could be medium. I think the large and huge, you're really getting into the realms of ICBMs rather than the cruise missile. But these are just a simple 6-block. They've got a variable thruster. Now, some of the key factors on this is you have got to wait for it to go out of the surface. Now, at this moment, we're about 40 meters down, approximately, and it's going to take a couple of seconds for that missile to breach the surface. Now, on this one, I haven't given it any ballast tank. It's got fins. This is aimed as a long-range cruise missile, not an anti-air. So, but otherwise fairly standard. Regulator, fuel tank. The one turn is set quite high, and wait a couple of seconds, at least 2 seconds. You might want to make that 2.5, but 2 seconds is a good figure before it starts turning on target. And then wait again, guidance delay. I'm using an active radar, and my guidance delay is 5 seconds, so I'm waiting a good 5 seconds before firing. Let's just set this up so I can see it fire. Now what I also want to show is I've got no ejector on one and an ejector on the other. So if we fire this one at our marauder target, you can see the one with ejector ejected nicely. The one without an ejector just about got out of the water before coming in and going for the target. That's quite nice. I'm going to bring in another marauder as another target a bit further away. So yeah, with one ejector it managed to fire without too much problem. What if you were a little deeper? So we're going to go down. This is about 80 meters down. So similar configuration. I'm going to launch it. The missile itself is identical. No difference on the missile itself. We've got one with one and one with 3 ejectors. Medium. Now I've set the target a little further away, and if we fire all 3, you can tell which one's got the ejectors, and the one without any hardly managed to get out of the water. So the 3 ejector, 4 ejector is okay down to about 150 meters depth. Below that it starts, depending on your exact missile design, it can get a little bit dodgy as to whether it's going to get out of the water or not. Basically, normally it will, but it's not a guarantee in any way. But yep, that works okay. So what I would suggest is you need to test it. If you think your submarine is going to be going low, either put a control block in to say stop firing these missiles once you're below a certain depth where they become ineffective, and make sure your sub will go up to the correct depth when at the right time. Hopefully that makes sense. So have some ACBs. If you're attacking something which is on the surface, you want to use these missiles. Make sure you don't go below whatever is your target depth, 150, 200, whatever you've made the missile for. That all said, can you make a horizontally launched missile which goes for surface targets? Yes you can. So this is one I've made which is sort of like an all-round, works against surface targets and flying targets to a degree, but not specifically flying targets. So what I have done, I've got a variable thruster in this and a 1-turn fuel tank, explosive. The main bit I've got in here is a ballast tank set to 0.5 plus buoyancy. And if we just bring this one out and see this one firing out, where's my target? There you are. So the missile fires out and heads out on the 1-turn and then starts to surface. This will be a sea skimming missile effectively. So once it hits the surface, the variable booster hits off and it is going out on target effectively on sea skimming mode. If the weather in that area is more problematic with bigger waves, this could be a problem in that it's going to hit the waves instead of the target and potentially be put into the water, but it would be continually coming out of the water and then firing, so it would skip its way to the target. I'm just going to bring it in one more, an airplane. So if we bring in a Felix, yep, let's bring in a Felix. I'm going to turn off the Felix weapons. So this will also fire against aircraft. You can see it's gone for it. Because it's got a radar seeker, it just goes for the most radar prevalent target, which in this case happens to be the Felix Liger. Is it Liger? No, the Felix. It's going for the Felix. Also, because the one turn will make it head slightly upwards, once it gets out of the water, oops, that heads out quite nicely to target. It's not ideal, but it does work quite nicely. Obviously it is subject to decoys and all the rest, and this isn't a particularly good anti-aircraft missile. More for anti-aircraft. Obviously you can add this to a vertical missile, but let me just show you this other one I made as my final choice. Make it so I can fire. So this is an infrared, very specifically going for aircraft, and it's actually got a short range thruster and a torp and a secondary torp. Fuel wise, it's got enough fuel to do more than just a bit more than 5 seconds duration on the thruster. This is aimed at firing at targets which are relatively short range. Although the 5 seconds would get it about about 1,500 meters approximately. No, a little bit less than that. Let's say 1,200. Plus you'll just spend time underwater as a torpedo. So really it's about 1,000 meters. The other key bit here is the short range thruster must be set with a start delay. On this I've done about 6 seconds works for me. If you set this low or do not set the start delay, it will use all the, for whatever reason, the short range thruster will not fire. It's the way that it's been set up. After 5 seconds it stops working. Even though it actually hasn't fired, it won't start. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, it's a bit strange, but that's the way they've made it. So make sure you set that. For me it worked out about 6 seconds. If I aim at the target and fire, it will come out, and the torpedo gives it a good lift out of the water, then it fires. Unfortunately that one didn't hit. Such is life. It is a bit finicky. It's not great at targets which are too close. It's got to be at just the right range. Come on, you know, fire. There we go. See if this one's a bit better. Yep, that's targeted on. The thruster fired, and oh, that got a good hit. Obviously you would fire more than one of these, and come on, fire. And I mostly wouldn't fire when it's too close. I'd mostly look for firing mostly about 500-600 meters would be ideal. You could make some other ones which are designed for closer range. I'm just doing this, really not showing this as an ultimate anything, just as a possible option against aircraft and or aerial targets. Oh, it missed again. Never mind. You put a target prediction on there, some other bits and pieces. It can make it a bit more reliable. Have a play with it. You can do it though. Doesn't have to be vertical launch missiles. I think I'm covered as far as that. Obviously, I'll say one other thing is the particle beam will be good against flying targets as well, because it's not affected by anything. So your particle beam will be your average go-to. Oh, I've got to wait. Come on. There we go. So yes, your particle beam is a good kill everything type of missile. Kill everything type of weapon, but you've got to have a good targeting on the enemy to use it. Yeah, I think I've covered everything in the boom. The boom is obviously a long segment. There's a lot of boom to look at. Obviously, it's all subject to how you would like to have your subs set up. I like to be, I have used particle weapons, but I won't use them in my historical type of builds. It doesn't really fit. But for futuristic based style of ones where I'm creating a sub which is the same as, say, ARS or a spaceshipy type of build, I'll use a particle weapons. Most of the time I like playing with missiles and torpedoes, and getting them to work in interesting ways is always fun for me, and decoys and all the rest of it. Any comments? Because I often miss things, don't get things slightly right. You notice by the amount of edits I have to put in for text where I say the wrong words and didn't even realise until afterwards and I'm editing. So this is a sort of like a bit of everything, and what I tend to do for sub weaponry. Comment down below what I missed. Comment down below what you think I'm wrong on. Leave some comments down below for ideas for the next ship. What I am doing in the next video, I'm going to be building a sub. I'm going to use everything I've used. It will be a historical build, so it's not to be using particles or anything else like too outlandish, but it will be using everything I've learned from you guys as well about depth control, possibly using rudder planes for the trim and dive planes, so using rudders for those instead of using the hydrofoils. We'll look at potentially putting those in. Depends if they fit within the style and the looks. Torpedoes, decoys. The only thing I won't be looking at in this next build will be stealth. That is a different subject I need to look at and talk at separately, and also particle weapons. I won't be using particle weapons. I might use interceptors, I might not. I might make this next build, because it's historical, it'll be more using decoys rather than interceptors, but that's about it. Maybe a future build I will put everything together, so we've got all of the different elements together to make a super sub, a blackcurrant eater, hopefully. Anyway, as always, comment, like, subscribe, all of those things you're supposed to say on YouTube, but above all, keep playing the game and have fun.